Hi, I'm David Tangredi, and welcome to A Fool's Inclination podcast. Today is Saturday, April 9th, 2016, and we're going to analyze a channeled message from last month. The message was originally meant as a reading for a friend, but the information was so applicable to me and, in my opinion, to most of us, that I decided to publish the message on my blog on March 2nd. You can find my blog at afoolsinclination.wordpress.com, and the name of that particular post was Ease, which was also the theme of the message. Now, what we're going to do today is I'm going to read snippets, excerpts from the message and discuss them in order. So the way it started, when I was getting ready to do the reading for my friend, I went to Facebook and was looking for a particularly nice picture of her to focus on. And I happened upon a post that she had shared, which provided instant inspiration for not only for her situation, but for the message. So this is the way that it started. In May of 2014, you shared a picture on Facebook. On it was written something to the following: imagine a world where the words you speak appear on your skin. We suggest you do that here and now, but not in the way the author meant. The author conveyed that idea as a warning. His energy suggested, be careful what you say. We instead say, be carefree what you say. If every single care you have today will be resolved in 3 days, what words would you speak between now and then? Can you imagine a carefree feeling now in advance of the arrival of those specific solutions? We know that if all were free, you all would hand out far more blessings than otherwise. So now imagine for a moment that all is free. If you needn't expend a single moment of effort for any possession or experience you desire, what then would you do? How then would you pass the time? Don't just ponder this idea, exercise your imagination. Now, one of the things that I especially like about channeled messages, and specifically when you get to read them, is they have value. They provide information over and over and over again because there's such subtle guidance encoded within the specific words and phrases. And in preparing for this discussion, I'm just amazed all over because there's so much in such little phrasing. Okay, for example, so they talk about if all were free. Now, free has a double meaning to us in our society, because there's free as in no cost, meaning you don't have to spend money for it, but there's free as in unencumbered. And they use both meanings within this, because they also say, if you needn't expend a single moment of effort for any possession or experience you desire. Notice that they use the word effort, not action, because we do live in a physical, action-oriented world, and Spirit never suggests that we don't take action. But when the action is inspired, it's effortless. I mean, notice how think back to when you're internally motivated, excited, when something feels good, there doesn't seem to be any effort involved. You feel invigorated by whatever action you're taking. They also suggest that we exercise our imagination. Now, Abraham often talks about the imagination as being very powerful in terms of manifestation. And I know most of the metaphysical community talks about visualization and how important or how powerful visualization can be in manifestation. But what I'm realizing now at this stage in my own practice is that the visualization is more about the vibration than it is about the imagery. Because I've had times, plenty of times, where I've been able to visualize something specific that I desired, let's say a piece of furniture, and can find, or an experience, and I can find the exact thing that I'm looking for that really closely matches the visualization. But then the experience sometimes feels flat. It feels like there's something missing. So imagination or visualization, when used to get us into the vibration of what we want. So I think the bigger point is to get the feeling of the experience. And one of the easiest ways that I can think of, or easiest examples that I can think of, is we often do this pretty easily with automobiles, because we tend to love cars, and we see a particular car that really catches our fancy, drive by, and we kind of automatically visualize having it, but then feel the excitement from that. So I think that's a very powerful part of the message. Now they also, so the next line, next snippet, they said, also imagine not having to pay the after price. First of all, after price is a phrase I've never heard before. I've never read it, I've never said it, I never thought it. So that was a phrase directly from them. And I really like it, because how often have we said to ourselves, or even out loud, I'm going to pay for this tomorrow, or I'm going to pay for this later. And it's the idea, you spend too much time in the sun, you think you're going to get burned. You eat too much, you think you're going to gain weight. You drink too much, you're going to have a hangover. There's all these, if I do something now that I want to do, I'm going to pay for it later in some way. So they do highlight that belief. So the next thing they talk about, the next line, I'll go over it. They talk about the freedom of that world would allow you to do just as you are currently capable with less measure. Now, as soon as I was typing this message, as soon as measure came out, I was kind of taken aback, because I was expecting to write judgment. And measure just was what came through. So then the very next thing they say is, notice we say measure rather than judgment. In fact, it is helpful to all of you to begin replacing the word and idea of judgment with the word and idea of measure. Measure is neutral, the way the universe operates. And then they say, and yet there is no judgment in the universe. So that's an interesting message, because that's something I think we tend to forget. And we tend to forget that the universe doesn't really have a judgment about what we want. Man has judgments about all sorts of things. One of the clearest obvious examples is gay marriage. People who are gay and want to get married, that's their desire. The universe has no judgment about that. But everybody seems to have an opinion one way or the other as to whether that's a good thing or not, whether it should be allowed or not. Of course, now that issue is somewhat resolved for the moment, but it's an example. I've been reminded a number of times by my guides, or spirit, or however you want to phrase it, that the judgments that I have about what I want are mine and not from the outside. This also brings up the idea of self-judgment. We do that a lot, where we say, I should be further along. How did I get here? Or what I'm doing is not measuring up to my expectation or other people's expectation. And if we're measuring rather than judging, then we're taking all of the heat off of it, because we can look at something that we've done, and we can measure it against what we intended to do, and then say, well, okay, it fell short, so either let's try again or let's see what we've learned from this and apply it to the next time. So there's a lot less, there's a lot less judgment. There's also a lot less negative feeling about it. So then they revisit the word free. So they say, let's go back to imagining that all is free. If everyone could get anything they want for free, is there a need to do anything for anyone? Wouldn't that free world allow you to do solely as you wish, solely for the benefit of yourself, solely what you desire to do in any moment? No one would ever come to you in need, for they would need only ask the universe and it would be given to them freely. And that means you would never need go without, since you would need only ask the universe for all that you want. So this is interesting because one of the encumbrances to freedom is things like obligation. We often feel obligated to do certain things. Sometimes that obligation looks like doing A to get B. So we think that we have to go to school and get a degree in order to then get a job doing what we want. There's all kinds of things like that. I need to take care of this before then I'm free to go have fun doing that. We tend to do our chores, or at least in our mind have it that do your chores first and then go out and play. And we even tell that to our kids. Do your homework first and then you can play. So there is that idea of obligation that interferes with freedom. And it's funny because it ties right into the society that we live in, where we hesitate to believe in anything happening for free. We tend to think that there's always a price for something that we want. From that, okay, so the next line I'll get to, it says, in that free world, what then would be the result when you measure your doings? With effort completely removed from accomplishment, what then would constitute right doing from so-called wrongdoing? Would you ever say, I didn't work hard enough, I didn't get up fast enough, I could have done more, I wish I didn't have to do it at all, I wish they would go to someone else, I wish I could overcome this inertia and just do what I want to do already? So there's a lot of, if you don't have to earn anything that you want, then you can't judge your actions towards your achievements. And that's something I think about a lot, because I have such a ingrained, let's say, work ethic, this idea of working hard to achieve something, or having to have a particular skill before I even attempt to do something. And if you think strictly in terms of manifestation, where you really separate effort from accomplishment, then when you look at what was accomplished and measure it, all of those self-judgment things that would tend to come out, which are really going to come about, they're going to come out in such a way like the examples they gave, where it's all about I didn't do enough, or I didn't do it right, or I didn't do, and it's like, well, they're saying effort doesn't really apply to accomplishment. So if the accomplishment wasn't right, you can't look at the lack of effort or the incorrect effort. So there's something else. And what Abraham always says is it's alignment. So one of the best lines in the whole channeled message is they say the punchline of the joke is that we already live in this world. So they're explaining to us that we already live in a world where we can ask and receive for free. Of course, that requires alignment, and alignment can be achieved through focus. So this is when we finally get to ease. So they say focus on ease to feel and experience ease. Spend just a little bit more time there and watch it bloom. If ease were a house plant, you would set it in the sun and water it regularly. You would talk to it like the living being that it is, and you would know that it will grow. Think of ease as an olive tree in your front yard. Just because it is young and not yet bearing fruit does not mean it won't. It doesn't mean you have to work harder to get it to. It takes no money whatsoever. It doesn't even require much of your attention. It will grow and it will bear fruit, as will ease. So I've kind of coined this phrase, and it was before this post, before this message, and it's the idea of harvesting. And at the time that I kind of coined it, I was harvesting excitement because I was looking to experience more excitement. And so I was reaching for the feeling of excitement for no reason, and then watching things that showed up that were exciting. In theory, that's the way it works. And I was able to experience that. I had that after just a couple of times of harvesting excitement, things showed up that were exciting. Now, the interesting thing is, I don't know why I chose excitement, but it was kind of what came through. And since this message, and this has really been sitting with me very strongly, excitement was fun to start with, but without having a foundation of ease, problems came up because excitement, the energy of excitement, the vibration of excitement feels very similar to overwhelmment because it's really the same kind of vibration. It's how we are relative to it as to whether we're excited by it or whether we're overwhelmed by it. And I like to use the example of whitewater rafting. If you're really into it, if you're having a great time, then it's very exhilarating to be on that river in the raft because you're trusting your safety and you're just enjoying what nature's throwing at you. But if you're scared, if you feel insecure, then that exhilaration becomes overwhelming and it's very scary. And I am kind of in that place where sometimes things that seem exciting bring up the other side. Like Abraham says, there's always two sides to every subject. There's the wanted and the unwanted. And if you're focused on if something with high energy comes in, that's exciting, but you're not solely focused on the wanted side, then the unwanted side can be very scary. So ease as a foundation, I think, is a better place to start. And I've backed off of harvesting excitement and I'm working more towards harvesting ease, because through ease, once you get that, foundationally, then you can really just kind of fall back on it. So as soon as things start to feel a little too much for where you are, then when you step back, you're stepping back into ease instead of stepping back into something lower like unease or discomfort or foreboding or whatever it is. Anxiety, maybe a little fear, could be anything. Okay, so one of their messages, they use my word, harvest ease in every place that you find it. So that is a key to using what you have to get more. So by noticing every time that you're in a place of ease, to notice what's easy in your life, to feel it while you're doing it. So one of the questions a reader had suggested that I do this blog post, this podcast based on that blog post. And when I asked her if she had some questions, and one of the things she was talking about was sort of my approach to this. And trust me, I've been working on this quite a bit. In fact, I won't even tell you how many times I've tried to do this podcast at this point. So I've really been focusing on, if it's not going with ease, then to step back from it and to really focus on getting my alignment better so that I can flow with it more easily. And that really does work because, well, as Abraham would say, because of momentum, once we get out of the flow of ease, we start to create momentum in whatever the other thing is. And for me, it could be frustration. It could be trying too hard. It could be it feels like going against the grain, where everything I try to do doesn't really work the first time, so I have to do it a number of times, or it's just not flowing. And then I notice that I have frustration within me, and when that happens, then it's hard to communicate an idea. The words come out confused or confusing. So I'm learning to really step back, to realign, and then try again. Now there were a couple notes that I'd made. So one of the other questions my reader had was, she mentioned about having a measuring stick that's hard to live up to. So I want to visit that for a moment, because there's an example of using the word measure, but really it's about judgment, because a measuring stick can be very useful to say, okay, this is my intention, and in my first attempt I got here, so I'm this far from where my intention is, so work on more alignment, learn from what I did, and then try again. So that's using a measuring stick. But when it's a measuring stick that's hard to live up to, then there gets into judgment. It could also be measuring too early or too often, because one of the things that I think about is because we are constantly evolving and growing, our manifestations, which are based on past alignment or past thought that we then aligned with to bring into manifestation now. So whatever shows up is based on past desires. And by the time we get there, we could very easily have grown past them. So it shows up and it doesn't measure up to where we are now. I have that experience, for example, with my first book. When I go back and read certain parts of my first book, I think a little differently about some of the ideas there. And I would probably convey them a little differently now because of how much I've learned since then. Anyway, so when we notice, so I guess the point is to notice our judging and our measuring. And I guess the way to really know whether you're judging or measuring, well, to know if we're judging in our favor or not. See, because judging is very valuable. When you judge something, anything, you are applying your value system to it. So when it doesn't match what you desire, you judge it negatively. When it matches what you desire, you judge it positively. And your feelings in the judging are paramount, because the law of attraction says that we want to notice what we value to increase receiving more of that. And so we want to judge when we like something because we want to tune into what we like. And then when something shows up, we can measure it and see that it falls short, and then immediately turn our attention away from what we don't like about it to what we do like in general. So we may see it as, well, this isn't what I wanted completely because it's lacking in this, that, or the other. So then we focus on, oh, well, this, that, and the other is what I want to bring in. Another question that came up had to do with staying the course. And, you know, in a human way, I'm the wrong person to ask because my endurance within any vibration is not as strong as I would like it to be. So my approach to that is to start over. It's like every day, you don't worry too much about the past, or you focus less on the past and you just say from here forward. So then anytime you find yourself off course, you get on course, and then you go from here forward. So it's not about of how much time you're spending there. It's just get there and move forward. Years ago, I had I think it was the first channeled reading that I ever received from another, and their message, it was the group entity was Polario, and their meme is always allow it to be easy. And that's another part, because obviously ease and easy are more or less the same, one derived from the other. So you can feel when things are easy, and you can still be doing something that's challenging you, but in an easy way. So there's I can't do it the first time, but then the second time I get a little more progress. And you can feel the difference between when things are not going with ease. One of the things I always notice is when I'm trying too hard, when I'm using brute force to overcome obstacles, because I'm exercising my determination, but not my alignment. And see, when you're determined and you're not aligned, then the road is a little rough. You can still get there, but it's not as fun. When you're more in alignment, then the journey is enjoyable, and the results usually come out better. And if it's more enjoyable, that's the whole point. Now, the last thing I'll get to, because I'm already up to 26 minutes, the last thing I'll get to is animals. If you have animals in your life, animals are huge teachers on alignment. As Abraham says, animals are way better at aligning than humans. Humans are better at desiring, and animals are better at aligning. So if we can learn from their alignment and go with the flow, then we help ourselves. Now, one way to learn about their alignment is to watch our alignment with them. Because one of the things that I notice is that when my alignment is better, my relationship with my cat is better. And when it's off, then her energy just starts driving me crazy. Like on an earlier take of this, I was trying to do this message, and she was having this constantly wanting to be on the other side of this door, whichever side she was on. And it was completely distracting me. I couldn't focus on what I was talking about because of that interruption. And so that was a sign, well, my alignment really isn't there because she's not flowing in with my experience. So anyway, I think that's good for now. If you have any questions as a result of this, please send them in either to my blog. You can email me, afoolsinclination@gmail.com. You can catch me on Facebook, A Fool's Inclination, and we'll continue to roll with all this. So I hope this was helpful. See you next time.